Alright, so today is the first full day of trying to build your own app, and while many of you have designed it out on paper, and we definitely recommend that you keep that nearby, we also want to make it easier for you to design in MIT App Inventor as well. So biggest question that came up the other day was that people wanted to get their things centered on their screen and they couldn't do it with the vertical and horizontal arrangements. So I'm going to show you table arrangements today because that should make it a little easier for you to space what you want. So on mine, I'm on screen 1, I've got nothing coded or anything yet. I'm going to go down to my layout tab and then I'm going to bring out a table arrangement. So a table arrangement starts off with 2 columns and 2 rows. And the only time you're actually going to see those things show up is if there's something in them. So like if I drag a button out, there's my column 1, row 1, column 2, row 1, there's 3, there's 4. Now, I'm going to need at least 9 squares on my table because it's kind of like a tic-tac-toe board, and the only way to get something centered is if you have a center box. So I'm going to change my columns to be 3, change my rows to be 3. I'm going to change my height to 90% because I want to fill everything but the very bottom, and my width is going to go to 100%. Okay, so as I look on my screen, you can see I got my top lines, my bottom lines, you don't see the edges. And I'm in tablet size. I know most of you are probably going to need to be in monitor size. Since I'm in percentages, it's not going to change anything right now. And to make sure you can see what I'm going to do, I'm going to stay in tablet size. But just remember, monitor size for your computers. So on my screen, let's say I want to have a button show up dead center on my screen. I'm going to start by putting images in here into each of my boxes, and you'll see they kind of highlight on where it is. Because I haven't told my boxes how big to be, and you can't tell them that until you put something in it, they're all pretty close. That's why I'm just kind of throwing 9 images in so that each of the boxes is the right size. Okay, so there you can see my table arrangement. Now over here, like for image 1, it puts a little box around it so I know I'm in the right one. I'm going to change my height to be 1%. Now since I'm at 90% total and I want 3 columns, if you do 90 divided by 3, that means each one should be about 30%. So I'm going to put 30% here, and you can see it spaced it out to be 1/3 of the screen. Image 4 is row 2. That one's also going to go to 30%. And then image 7 is going to go to 30%. Okay, so that spaced me out vertically. To space out horizontally, back on image 1, I'm also going to change the width to 30%. And I'll do that for image 2 and for image 3. And I only had to do that on the top row and the far left row because you see it spaced everything out when I did that. Now when you connect this to your tablet, you're not going to see these image boxes. So I can leave these here forever until I'm ready to put something else there. So let's say I wanted my button in there with my image 5, I think. I can put my text for button 1 here and it's going to stay centered. If I decide I don't want it, I just delete it. And because my image sprite is still underneath, it's not going to affect my table. Okay? So, you guys all know I'm the yearbook sponsor, so I apologize to Mr. Yoder. He's the only picture I had on my desktop. I can add him to each of my boxes, and you'll see that it gets spaced out perfectly. Okay? One question that we were asked today is, on my emulator, on my screen, it shows a gap between each of their pictures. But when I put this into my phone or my tablet to test it, these are going to be touching each other. There's not going to be a gap here. If you want to put a gap, we're going to have to change the columns from 3 to 7. And then I'm going to delete the images out. It makes it a little harder to work when they're in here. So now on my table arrangement, I have 7 columns. That means that I should have 1, 2, 3. They're over here and they're smushed, right? So my image 2 is the only one that I resized. I'm actually going to change that width down to 2%. This one's going to stay normal. Go to my next column. That one's going to be a 2%. And you see, so now when I put these in, I'm going to have picture, 2% gap, picture, 2% gap, picture, 2% gap, all the way across. If you want your space between your columns as well, you're going to have to do the same thing. This is where your names become important. So instead of image 2 right here, I'm going to rename that spacer 1. I don't want anything to go in there. I don't want to code it. I don't want to touch it. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 is another spacer because that one's right here. So I'm going to rename that one spacer 2. And so you get everything the way you want it. Okay, that's it for table arrangements. And since I'm at 6 minutes, I'm going to stop this video and then I'll make another one for sounds.